Yeah.
Great. Hi, Ebony. So just first question. Court Square in Long Island City has seen significant residential development with tens of thousands of new residents and large buildings continuing to be built. Although the city has tried to balance the unplanned residential development by promising to reopen the Queens Public Library branch that was closed and promising a new elementary school in the area, there really hasn't been any progress from SCA or Queens Public Library on the new school or reopening the branch. As the council member that represents the neighborhood, what concrete specific steps can you do to prevent these scenarios from occurring in the future? And now that we're in the current situation, what concrete specific steps can you do to ensure that the city actually delivers its promises for the new school and the library?
Yeah. So, Frank, thanks so much for that question. I think the first answers that I would have here is really around synergy amongst the SCA, parents of the neighborhood, community leaders, right, and the city being on one accord. What I have seen in this particular situation, specifically around Court Square desiring a new elementary school and PS 384 new construction not being completed, and the back and forth on answers and who has funding, who doesn't have funding, are we misappropriating funds, etc. I really see a divide in cohesion there. And some of that is, how do we take all of those entities and bring them together at a table, not necessarily for answers to those things up front, but how do we create better synergies together, right? SCA, parents, community leaders, the city, etc. So I think that means really being proactive in how we have conversations with each other, not only coming together when we are in crises. I think that is one of our problems, as a cohesive group, needing answers, whether that be budgeting, whether that be new elementary schools, whether that be putting these schools on hold and construction being paused due to our pandemic, etc. Imagine if we had a fluid conversation monthly, that we would all get together, come together, and have conversations outside of crises, so that when crises were to happen, we would have some grounded solutions and at least preparing for things that could be. I see better relationships needing to be made, creating synergies there. As it relates to not having our library right now and our schools, I believe we need more schools, we need more seats. I fortunately have a lot of power in negotiation with that, as I've had relationships with some of the developers when you look about or think through the LIC rezoning. And so your LIC rezoning. So, an example of that is, when I was with TF Cornerstone as their social responsibility lead, my position was to, push back and to say no on certain projects or to enhance certain projects. And an example of that is when TF Cornerstone was going to build a 100% luxury market rate building. And because I pushed back, because I put my foot, on the pedal there, they didn't do that. They ended up cutting the platform in half, having more open space, thinking about how we protect and help our most vulnerable citizens through workforce development projects in a commercial building, 100% commercial building, and how we access and open up jobs for those individuals. And so I believe I have some power there in doing some of that. And so I would really work on stabilizing relationships so that we have a more comprehensive plan.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. The second question is, District 26 is made of diverse neighborhoods that are typically very segregated. Today, families in one neighborhood, they live, eat, work, send their kids to different schools than other families within the district. Since these communities often don't intersect, you end up with a perspective from one neighborhood describing LIC as a ghost town with ghost towers, and then the other perspective describing LIC as overcrowded with the lack of infrastructure for schools, sewage, and public space. As the elected official representing the overall district, How do you reconcile these perspectives in different communities to ensure better connectivity, but also just overall representation for the district?
Yeah. So I think one of those problems, again, is people aren't communicating. And when you don't communicate, you tend to separate without knowledge, right? And so I plan on creating task forces. Yes, we have our community boards. Yes, I think we need to keep our community boards. I do think there needs to be a better rotation in community boards and a different way of approaching that and of how people are chosen. But I'd like to create community neighborhood task forces that are made up of the people that represent that particular neighborhood. So I live in Woodside, right? And I know that, Asian, Latinx, and Caucasians, et cetera. And that's broken down under Asian, Filipino, we've got, Southeast Asian, et cetera, pulling leaders from those particular communities to be neighborhood captains. Those folks would meet on a quarterly basis to talk about what's going on in their particular, diverse cultures, what's going on for them as it relates to their children, their families, street concerns, et cetera. Then funnel that up to the community board so that there's some form of a report that is represented by each of these neighborhood captains at our community board. So people are more aware. They're leaders that have better representation from those particular cultures, and we have a diverse resolution and solution to some of our problems.
Great, no, thank you. So just two more questions. When Court Square was first envisioned, it was meant to be a commercial area, an extension of Midtown East. However, a lot of the development ended up being large residential high rises, as we know. Today, Court Square is being positioned as a mixed use neighborhood with significant commercial development as well, like the Jacks, which is a 1 million square foot in commercial office space, and InnoLabs, a new bio life science office building, and Citigroup Altice Tower someplace. What are your perspectives on diversifying the building mixes, basically commercial businesses within Court Square specifically, and if applicable, with what government tools, policies, incentives, or otherwise?
Yeah. So one of the things I think we really need to think about and look at is some of our warehouse open spaces. What are we going to do with these spaces that are sitting dormant right now? When you talk about the issues that we're having right now with schools and more seats and some of the other jobs and et cetera, health, et cetera, how do we begin to think through what our future looks like with those problems and aligning spaces within Court Square to address those problems, right? So when you're talking about, jobs, how we could potentially look at more mixed use space in reference to pulling in neighborhood, opportunities to be able to help us. So partnering with some of the colleges, looking at some of the non-for-profit organizations that could utilize space within Court Square. So you talk about your library being, it's gone. We need a new library. There are things that we can revision and rethink about with these particular buildings that are not being used right now. So I think we take a real heavy look at the buildings that aren't being utilized, look at ways that we can think through collaborative mixed use solutions to some of our problems, which the top ones are being, health, job focus issues, schools, and really thinking through how we create better opportunity for everyone in that neighborhood.
Great. So I guess just the very last question, and I know this question was asked of you in March, so I guess I would ask it again is, who would be your ranked choice vote for number 2 within this election? If you don't have the answer to that, that's fine as well. I know it was asked in March, but I guess the bonus question would be, who would be your ranked choice vote for the next mayor of New York City too as well? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm so busy focusing on my ranked choice being 1 right now. There's lots of great people that are running in this race, right? And so we don't want to take anything away from people that are running in the race. I definitely say that, people should do their research and, they should really think through making sure that you rank, right? Which is important, and not just have one person in that ranking. As far as the mayoral's race is concerned, there's a lot of facets around a lot of things happening with me right now. And so my focus and my attention is really on District 26. Long Island City, Astoria, Sunnyside, Woodside, right? And so I don't think I've come to a concrete answer on that. So that's where I'm at right now, just thinking through.
Great. Thanks, Ebony.
Ah, thank you.